Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Tales from the Gutter. I'm Mikki.
I'm Blake.
And this is our new show that I'm only somewhat stealing the concept from an Australian show called Do Go On. And this whole basis of Do Go On is that once a week they record, once an episode, one person in the show has to come up with an essay on a topic, and the other people don't know about it. So it's interesting for them. They get to talk. People get to listen. There's questions. It's very unsolid format. So pipe in whenever.
Mostly with do go on.
Do go on, because they go da 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 da. But the concept between Tales from the Gutter is instead of just doing random topics, we're going to do the things that occur around fiction. It can be any kind of fiction or art or presentation. It can be the true story of the trial of Fatty Arbuckle, or that time Vanilla Ice was hung outside the balcony by Suge Knight. It can be anything that occurred around the art.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the.
I mean, I'm not learning about this concept with you, dear fledgling audience.
Yeah, I'm not at all having to explain it to my co-host right here.
While reading off your cellular phone,
where I furiously typed a script.
We should just be proud that this is our first podcast with a script.
I know, right?
I mean, heavily
moving on. Anyway, so today's topic is you either die a hero or live long enough to piss off the author, in which we look at ways in which authors have immortalized some people who they truly fucking hate.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start off...
I'm kind of in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super into this.
Let's start off easy with Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy.
Did you go to King's?
Yes, I did.
Oh, fuck off.
In which
it's the most local joke, but it'll go over well with our 3 listeners here.
There you go. They're probably King's grads as well.
Oh, God.
In which Dante, in exile from his home city of Florence, makes it very, very clear who he thinks is worth being friends with and who can, quite literally, figuratively speaking, burn in hell. And to be specific, this depiction of hell is where most of pop culture draws from. It has the lakes of fire, the poetic punishments, the creepy suicide forest, and Satan frozen up to his nips in eternal ice.
There's a creepy suicide forest?
Yeah. So if you commit suicide in Alighieri hell, you turn into a tree in this forest that's in hell. And it's like, it's quiet otherwise. There's no threats or anything. It's just a forest of people who commit suicide.
Okay, but this is going to sound awful, and it's not meant to be an encouragement for anyone, but what's the downside? That sounds lovely.
All you hear, all you are constantly is like your own experience of your suicide. So like, it's people, the poetic punishment of it is you wasted the life that you had by ending it. So now you have like an eternal life where you can't do anything.
You're a tree.
Yeah, but you're like a conscious tree who's constantly thinking about your own suicide.
Well, and other stuff.
No, like this is like the way of hell. It
well,
makes
if
it
you
so
don't get
present.
Freedom of thought in hell, then there's no point in being there, because you don't get imaginative about how much you deserve to be there.
You do not get freedom of thought in Alighieri in hell. You get pain and more pain.
Yes, but if you're not free to react to it in your own way, then it doesn't even count.
Well,
you're being pre-programmed. You're just a robot at that point.
That is curious, because there are people who cheat hell in Alighieri in hell, and there are some places like there's levels of hell. Like one of the first levels of hell is just for like non-believers who are good people, and all it is like the world, but you're aware that you're never going to get to heaven. That's it. You can do anything else you want. you can do anything, but you're
wait a minute. So there are no
construct.
repercussions for other terrible activity on that level of hell because you're already dead.
But everyone on that level is the kind of person who's not going to do something bad.
So are you just immortal on that level?
Yeah, you're kind of just you're milling about having conversation with people.
But, like, is this an attractive world you could explore while you're immortal? Could you, like, climb mountains and, like...
It's called the mundane, so it's, like, a gray kind of... It's a less interesting version of the real world.
Okay, I'm going to stop trying to dress up hell here. I realize I'm kind of... So far, I've kind of argued for these two separate hells.
There was a very close chance that this was going to become an hour-long lecture about the Divine Comedy. Because
were you afraid this is just going to be me going, do go on? Because
because it would just be like, and here's an esoteric thing, and here's an esoteric thing.
This is how this show is going to work. You realize is that we're just not that kind of people.
That's why the script, so that when everything goes wrong, we have an anchor.
That's true. And Brent will be back next week for a third party, but he is currently sleepy.
Yes, and therefore it'll be even more convoluted next. It'll be wonderful. With 3 people, this truly becomes... Because you get one person who kind of understands and questions, and one person who always just goes, the fuck are you talking about?
I'm planning on getting really good for the build-up, where I wait like 5 interjections long, and then I'm like, I don't understand anything! And just outbursting and flipping the table over.
This is gonna be fun. Anyway, but the list of offenders that Dante included were the politicians who exiled him, the business rivals who bought the politicians who exiled him, some artist he didn't enjoy, all of the Greek heroes of myth, plus all of the great Greek philosophers.
Why?
Because he fucking hated the Greeks.
What was his deal with the Greeks?
He was as a gentleman of Italian descent in Renaissance Italy, he thought that the Romans were fucking amazing. The Greeks...
But that doesn't mean you have to hate the Greeks. The Greeks basically, like, were the under... Their ideas migrated into Rome.
No, that comes from an understanding of the literature of classical Rome. See, according to Roman literature such as the Aeneid and Roman myth, they're from a refugee of the Trojan War. So if you go back far enough in Roman history, the Greeks are the enemy. You wouldn't have Rome if the Greeks hadn't burned Troy. The Greeks are the primary enemy according to Roman myth, like civil myth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To go on.
Anyway, the woman he pined for his entire life but never met, she has been dragged through hell as a means of getting him to kind of like go through this process.
But never met?
Yes, he had, what was it called? It was chivalrous love, in which you pick a woman of noble birth and you write poems about them and obsess about them, and you never actually interfere in their lives.
And it's called what?
Chivalric love. It's a form of...
Incel?
No. It's a form of original, like, medieval courtly love that was developed in the Islamic court, and it's an entirely artistic-based concept of love, in which you intentionally just, like, decide to make a single person who you never interact with an embodiment of, like, a divine love.
You make them your muse, basically.
Yeah, but you don't tell them.
Okay.
And so, for him, it's Beatrice. He wrote the entire Divine Comedy as a mourning act for Beatrice. And she's like, she doesn't guide him. She's like the target he's constantly following. All the way up to paradise, where she's sitting next to, like, Jesus. So, yeah, you obsess.
Wait a minute, how did she die?
She was already dead. She was already dead. Like, Beatrice died of plague or some shit. Okay. Something that kills women in their 20s in, like, 1500.
She got run over by a donkey cart.
Exactly.
That's sad.
Sorry, Beatrice.
Do go on.
The conspirators against Caesar.
Okay, yeah, that one I actually knew.
Currently being gnawed on by one of the heads, or 2 of the heads of Satan.
How many heads does Satan have?
3 heads.
That never came up in Sunday school once.
No, it does not. Nor the fact that if you want to crawl, you can exit hell by going down, but you
How does that work?
So it's a pit.
I love how appalled I am by that concept.
Yeah, it's a pit, and the further you get down, the colder it gets. So the bottom of hell is actually frozen.
Okay.
And Satan is frozen into the bottom of hell, but there's a crack in the back, and so you can crawl down his ass and escape hell.
And that sounds like just a really weird way to get you to crawl into Satan's ass.
And that's how Dante gets through hell and goes to purgatory.
Weird.
Yeah, he crawls down Satan and through his butt cheeks and leaves.
Okay. Do go on.
It includes at least 4 popes.
Okay, why?
Because
we're never going to get
he hated their decisions. This is a political nerd who got to write revenge fantasy at a time when people thought that the place he's writing about was real, and by writing about it, you actually influence the reality of it. So he
must have been super popular.
Oh, he was exiled for life.
Well, yeah.
That included the then sitting Pope Clement V, who he expressly noted has a spot in the Inferno waiting for him. You're going to go to hell because fuck you.
Amazing.
He presumed...
Were there any memorable decisions that he disagreed with? Like anything that we can be like, yeah, you're right?
Like papal schisms and general tiny little civil war matters between houses that no one gives a crap about.
That's dumb. Why are you gonna risk everything over that?
Just fuck that guy. I think he was almost an anti-pope. So if you have one pope and another pope is elected or declared, that pope is an anti-pope.
So there's currently an anti-pope, realistically.
There's always been an anti-pope, technically.
What?
Because the minute there was a schism in the church, so I guess for the first 250 years there wasn't an anti-pope. But as soon as there was a schism and East and West split, anti-popes.
Oh, okay. So you're saying the leader of the Orthodox Church is an anti-pope?
No, actually, technically, the leader of the Orthodox Church is closer culturally to the original church. Mm-hmm. Catholicism is a Roman office.
So that dude in Rome is the anti-pope?
Technically.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah. Early Christianity is super complicated.
Again, not covered in Sunday school. Very simple. Lazarus, make a diorama, raising from the dead.
Yeah, he dead, he not.
He not, there you go.
Now, this is at a time when the papal state could have you killed or tortured in a variety of exciting ways. And despite getting kicked out of Florence and trashing everyone in Italy, he never bothered to leave the peninsula. It all worked out for Dante, though, thanks to ample ass-kissing he crammed into purgatory and paradise, the equivalent of fuck you, you're cool, I'm out. He literally, to cover his ass on the Inferno, in which he burned everyone he hated, he fills the next 2 books of people going, oh, but you're going to heaven. Oh, but
nobody
you're going to
remembers
heaven.
those books nearly as much.
They are very boring and weird books.
Well, yeah. They're suck-ups.
Purgatory is climbing a mountain, and every day he's on a different level of it, and it's just weird shit people have to do to be righteous. On one, you can't get above the level unless you lay down face down on this road, and people drag you up the side of it. And it's experience this pain. Congratulations, you're now a little bit more worthy of going to heaven. And then when you get to heaven, it's this bizarre Renaissance diorama of circles within circles within circles within circles of conceptualization. And they're like, oh, you just learned what geometry is. That's so cute.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, hell just sounds more interesting.
It makes much more sense.
Just trees? That's so nice. I'm not, that's not a selfish, that's not a subtle expression of self-harm. For self-harm.
Maybe I'll just go out this way.
I just think trees are particularly beautiful, that's all. Also, being immortal and it's not just it's a great office building world though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm not so down with. I'd rather be a tree.
Yeah, you get to hang out with a lot of kind of cool people, all the Greek philosophers and everything, and all of the kings of Persia and.
Okay, now I'm down.
Yeah. It could be fun.
Okay, the kings of Persia got me.
Kings of Persia.
No, I played Prince of Persia. I'm in.
Hello, Xerxes. So, in some cases of being retroactively demonized by authors, though, The author was just using someone vaguely familiar as an unrelated jumping off point for their villains. That the vizier... I'm going to say a lot of words here in a moment. That the vizier of Caliph Harun al-Rashid... So that's the Caliph.
He's a Civilization character, I know him.
Yeah. Jafar ibn Yahar.
I think he's in Aladdin, so we're still good.
Yeah, Jafar was an avid patron of what would become science and helped bring paper to Arabia.
Well, he got a bum rap ultimately.
Yeah, but according to legend, was executed for
deal.
It's right. He shacked up with the Caliph's wife and was executed.
That's why you get a raw fucking deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't bang the boss's wife. Don't shit where you eat. It's ridiculous.
His fame as a vizier, however, led him to become a one-man short for the position. So, like, when people think of vizier, they think of him in one respect or another.
Oh, will you be my new Jafar? You come with a red bird?
But here's the thing. He's in Arabian Nights, obviously, as Jafar in Aladdin. But he's also in Arabian Nights as two other different stories. One is a detective story in which he is a proto-Sherlock Holmes and solves a case. Another is an adventure story in which he goes out adventuring to discover something. And no one knows about these stories. You just think about the guy from Aladdin.
So far this evening, you're making me really want to get to know Jafar more. And be kind of a fan of certain levels of hell.
Yeah.
So we're off to a great start.
Evil is good.
This show is definitely guaranteed to be a success.
Also, the story of Aladdin is from China. It is not Arabian. It is a Chinese story that was brought over the Silk Road. And Jafar has been added into it as like a cementing piece. So he got added to a story.
Fuck Aladdin, you're not even real. It's all about Jafar.
Yeah. It's like, fuck. Or what about Cardinal Richelieu? While indeed a powerful and probably last military leader of the Catholic Church, he was more or less the Prime Minister of France during the 1600s. The Cardinal had a reputation for working with his presumed enemies to create a more stable Europe, instead of, like, killing them all. He was the powerful hand that was behind Samuel de Champlain's expeditions in colonization of New France, and was the founder of the Académie Française. So, of course, Alexandre Dumas simply had to make him the mustache-twirling villain of the Three Musketeers.
That's hilarious. I'm sitting here nodding to these. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, that sounds good.
Yeah, he became the greatest French villain in all of French fiction. Cardinal Richelieu is the supreme bad guy.
So how did this happen?
Alexandre Dumas. He needed a villain, and Richelieu was like he was a military leader. Mm-hmm. There's these paintings in which he's in military cardinal garb. And so he has this big flowing red cape, the little red hat, and steel.
See, that's fun.
And so he's like this really imposing, very successful soldier who, because of, mostly due to a campaign against the Huguenots, which was French Protestant, that Alexander
Aren't you a Huguenot?
Yes, I'm a Huguenot.
I thought you were a Huguenot.
Yeah. Fuck you, Richelieu. But Alexandre Dumas, and I think because of his father, Alexandre Dumas, it was Dumas. Alexandre Dumas is like 3 generations. One was a war hero, his son was a novelist, and the third son was also a novelist, but you didn't read any of his stuff. Yeah.
I love that I feel bad for that guy, but nobody knows who the fuck the next generation was or feels bad for that guy.
Exactly.
It's like me. But I was...
Fuck them. But they were like partial to freedom and unity and equality and all that in France. So I think that's why he decided on Richelieu as a bad guy. And it's just, this is what you're known for now. Mm-hmm. You founded the Académie Française.
And yet I've seen you in movies, like, I'm pretty sure hunting people through sewers.
Exactly. You were played by Tim Curry.
You were.
You were doomed. You are doomed.
Oh, that's great. Do go on.
A more contemporary example would be Al Yagena, an Iranian chef who opened the Soup Man in 1984 in Manhattan, which is now an unrelated chain called the Original Soup Man. Audiences, however, will be better familiar with Chef Yagana through the Soup Nazi.
Didn't he play himself, though?
He did not.
I'm sure he did.
He hated the show.
I knew he hated the show. I just thought it was, like, subsequently after it came out.
No, that's an Italian actor.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember his name, but I read that.
I don't know why I thought he played himself then.
Because that guy's so good.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, he's perfect at it.
That's really a compliment to that actor, I guess.
As far back as 1989, the New Yorker stated that Chef Yagana was noted for being exactly as he would be later portrayed. Like, people were doing reports saying, like, there's this great place, you get in line,
yeah,
you say exactly the only words of what the item is,
yeah,
you leave. And it was a warning of, like, great food, beware of the chef.
Yeah.
Claiming customers treated him like a slave and that they should follow the simple rules of the establishment. Get in line, order, leave. The week after the Soup Nazi episode was broadcast, the producers and writers of Seinfeld returned. And Chef Yagana legendarily threw the production out of his restaurant, screaming expletives about how they ruined his business. In this case, ruining meant making his soup kitchen so successful, he was able to franchise it.
Amazing.
He sold the franchise to some guys who were later convicted of tax fraud, but he is now rich because he was a prick to some writers.
And does he still hate the show?
He hates the fucking show.
Still, after that. That's kind of ungrateful.
He truly, truly believes that he was done wrong by them.
Well, he is going to go down in history as the soup Nazi, so...
Yeah.
He's not the soup angel, like...
But apparently it's just perfectly...
he's not even the soup prince of Persia, like... That would be great. That's what you want.
Prince of Persia.
That would be a much better moniker than soup Nazi.
He at least got to see some money out of it, though.
Well, yeah, that's a help, but he's still, you know, a form of Nazi.
Admittedly,
it's a soup Nazi.
The next
that's
guy...
like the most... That's the least threatening form of Nazi.
There you go.
Yeah.
The next guy is a different form of... gets portrayed as a different form of Nazi.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, like I said, Chef Yagana at least got some money out of it. Less so for John Nettleship, a Welsh high school chemistry teacher with jet black mop hair, a long sullen face, and a habit of picking on bright and popular children in his classes. One of his preferred targets for torment was a girl named Joanne, a studious little troubled and unhappy
I just
child
got it right before you said her name, I swear to God.
who Nettleship crapped on constantly. It was only during an interview with the British press in the mid-aughts that Nettleship was asked, "What do you feel about being the basis for Severus Snape?" and realized that she had made him the most revolting, despised, and reviled character in the most successful book in history.
Did he not know before that moment?
He had no
clue.
clue.
Heavens, how did he respond?
He apparently was very kind of like taken aback and never addressed it again. He never spoke to anyone about it. It was just like, fuck. Yeah. Was I really that much of a prick? She went on to make something like $3 billion.
Amazing. Good for her.
Yeah.
Hilarious for him. Or for us.
For us, definitely. None of this, however, compared to the intentional, detailed, and personal revenge Stephen King brought upon Brian Smith.
Brian Smith.
Brian Smith.
Who's Brian Smith?
A nobody former construction worker from Maine with a decades-long conviction record for drunk driving. On June 19th of 1999, while driving his blue Dodge Caravan, Smith was distracted for a moment by one of his dogs and plowed through the author, who was going out for a walk. Yeah, same, right?
Yeah.
King's head hit the windshield so hard the glass broke. His ribs broke, his right leg broke, his right hip broke, and he punctured a lung, resulting in almost a month-long hospital stay. While King never seemed too angry with Smith, who he called a man with an IQ of less than an empty tomato can.
Not too angry, though.
The increasingly weird reality around the events say otherwise. As, of course, just befits Stephen
Stephen
King.
King, yeah.
First, King demanded that Smith permanently lose his driver's license, which probably should have happened already.
Mm-hmm.
But because of King's sway, that definitely fucking happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems reasonable considering his conviction history, but effectively destroyed the man's ability to get odd jobs, which was the only source of income.
Oh, God.
And the only way he could travel around anywhere aside from his shack.
Mm.
Well, he had a trailer. King then allegedly strong-armed Smith into accepting only $1,500 for the van to keep it out of the hands of collectors who would have paid Smith much, much more for the van that almost killed Stephen King.
That's really gross. Not that Stephen King paid him for anything.
But people would definitely
want that.
They would have paid him.
Good on Stephen King for figuring that out.
Yeah.
Like.
Oh, and immediate, right? Meanwhile, King started incorporating Smith and the accident into his books. Now, for those unfamiliar with King's work, all of his stories occur in a continuum, a series of multiple dimensions linked by a structure called the Dark Tower. Oh, excuse me. Which is actually the body of a Christ-like Arthur metaphysical being that is at the center of all existence. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a King Arthur / Jesus / Creator God in the form of a tower.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do go on.
It's best not to. It's a world of reverberations, a theme not carried in the movies, but in the books. The Shawshank Redemption is connected to The Shining, is connected to it, and you can see these connections.
Mm-hmm.
They don't carry it through in other media, but like the books are really good about it. So not only does an innocent person hit by caravan, specifically Dodge Caravan every time,
mm-hmm.
become a cliche of this multiverse, but Brian Smith himself is introduced into the fiction as Brian Smith.
How is he allowed to use that name, or is it just because it's such a fucking common name?
Because it's so common, and essentially describing
amazing.
dumb shit from Maine is just like, okay.
Oh my god.
And this guy doesn't have the money to do anything about it. He's introduced into the fiction, albeit portrayed as even dumber than real life, and perpetually high as fuck. He is a secret agent of the Crimson King, the evilest high entity in the entire King universe. And Smith almost gets King again, who the Crimson King has targeted for assassination as a powerful sculptor of worlds.
Oh my god.
King is saved, however, by the character Jake Chambers, this perfect, innocent boy child who pushes King out of the way and gets killed by Brian Smith instead. So now, Brian Smith is the fictionalized villain who kills a main character, golden perfect boy child, who was both the audience's viewpoint and their beloved adopted hero's son. That would be the gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
Making Smith the biggest villain in his fictional world.
I actually feel slightly bad for the guy, but I, you know.
Yeah.
I sincerely get it. Jesus Christ.
Unable to work, facing obvious legal repercussions from the car accident, and villainized. So I'm gonna wait a second. Yeah, I'm just gonna edit around that because I stumbled.
Oh, that's fine.
Unable to
I
work.
also left because I was down, so that's fine. It's hard to leave this repetitiously.
It's one of those things where you're just like,
two
bah.
people.
Right? Unable to work, facing another conviction, and villainized by one of the world's most prolific writers, Smith downed a bottle of fentanyl and died in 2000.
Early adopter.
Yeah. His body was discovered on September 21st of that year, Stephen King's 53rd birthday.
Fuck off.
And that's why you don't piss off writers.
That's crazy. Stephen King is a builder of worlds.
So that was Tales from the Gutter. Thank you so much for listening. We got half an hour out of that. That's fantastic.
I like this idea for a show. I'm excited to find out what I'll be working on for next time.
Right, and that's entirely up to you.
So explain the concept one more time for the audience, not just...
So, stories around the media you consume. You're not telling this. So
just any background, any hilarious background nonsense.
Yeah, anything like that. Like one thing that if it made it into the media, and it's like, all right,
we got into talking about this over the Chakotay research guy.
Yes, we did. Yes, and that's how it came about. Yeah, so that story, the Chakotay research guy, that's absolutely a topic.
We'll be exploring something at some point with the linked universes of Golden Girls, Empty Nest, and Nurses.
Yes, and how how things like that came about, or like, for some reason, an example that's off the top of my head. I saw Mission Impossible Fallout a couple days ago. Fantastic film, like for an action film, perfect. It's like art house action, but there's a moment in it when Tom Cruise is jumping across a real building and he missed the landing and shattered his leg, and it's in the film. That would be a good little tiny story of being like, hey, you think he's fucking nuts? Here's how he actually hurts himself, like or yeah, like things like that. So
it could be a fun series of stories.
Exactly.
Actors have done,
Yeah.
Too far for realism.
True. We're gonna do that. That's actually I'll call it. That'll be my next one to write.
All right.
And we can return to episodes.
I'm gonna stop discussing ideas with
like
you, man.
we've found more stories.
Oh, that's great. This is fun. This is gonna be a good research project.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. It's like I swear. Like, look, hold on. Where's that? I'll get this, and I sped wrote this. Like I was gonna be like, okay, generally memorize the topic and go through. No, I wrote.
Jesus Christ, you took some notes.
Yeah, I wrote an entire script in like half an hour.